Welcome back to Dynamic Character Productions. It's a new season. We got a new panel for this episode and for the premiere and episode 2 of our second long game, Survivor Monte Carlo. I'm your host, Alex Trias, as always, and we have two special guests here today, both of them from our most recently aired season of our fourth mini Sahara Dunes. We got two of our finalists. We got Eric, we got Kiley. How you guys doing? How did you guys enjoy seeing other people having to suffer?
Oh my god. It's amazing. First of all, thanks for having us, Alex. It's so fun. And it's been so fun so far. So I'm very excited to talk about it.
Yeah, it's super fun to watch back. And it's also a totally different experience to watch back a long game versus a mini. It's like a different type of game and strategy. So it's interesting, but it's super fun. And it's a really fun cast.
Yeah, you know, it's so different. Like you guys for the first two boots, it's been what, like a little over 2 hours. They got a full week. Like, come on.
Yeah, seven
That's insane.
days.
It's such a weird concept. Like, I feel like these people are getting so close, and I'm like, they've only known each other for 2 hours. How is this happening? But it's actually been like so many days.
It's truly a different experience, a long game versus a mini. But we'll cut straight into it. It's the premiere. It's the High Rollers room. We see this marooning of 17 people, and everyone's sort of like, this is a weird number. Why? You know, it's usually 16 or 18 or 20 or 12, whatever. But there's not a number of people, and everyone's wondering, like, oh, is like someone gonna get immediately sent to exile? Because you can already tell there are people who had just like binged or watched the first long game. So it's very interesting to watch as a producer of this, being like, okay, these people did their homework. These people are actually coming in genuinely like, this is my first experience. I have no idea what happened before, but this is what it is now. We get a little bit of talk of the Monte Carlo theme and how it relates to actual Survivor, because there is luck in these games. People don't like to admit it. There's luck in these games. Like, who do you get swapped to when you suddenly have to swap tribes, and do those stick? But did you guys have any first impressions when you got to see this cast? There's a lot of people, so I know it could be a little hard to gauge a first impression, but they all had to do it. So I'm going to put you both on the spot. Eric, who just from initial first impressions, were you feeling like, oh, these are people I could work with, or like, no, something's not right here?
So from the first impressions, like when they were asking them all questions about the theme and stuff, I think Julia said it nicely, kind of just how you did, about how there is luck involved. There is skill, but there's also luck and there's chance. So, and I feel like, I don't know, I was drawn to her personality and her energy. So I feel like that's somebody that I would probably gravitate towards in another game if I were to play.
How about you, Kiley?
My first thought was that I would not have noticed that there were 17 of us if I was involved in that 17. Like, I don't think that anyone explicitly was like, oh my gosh, there's 17 people, what's going to happen, that we saw at least. But I know there are definitely some people that were scoping that out and like, okay, what's going to happen? This is not going to be even. But I know for a fact, if I was on there, I would not have thought about that. So I would have probably gravitated towards anyone that maybe also felt the same way and would have been blindsided by some sort of twist at that point. But I agree, Julia had a really good answer, I feel like, at the very beginning. And then just in general, like, whoever was answering the questions when they first got in that first big group, they all seemed very just like coy in a sense. Like, they didn't know, they were kind of still scoping out just like what's going on. So I would have probably just been trying to, I guess, get first impressions based on the people that were talking rather than just the people that were sitting there, because you can't really tell the rest of them.
Right.
Except for Margaret.
Margaret was very.
She was pointing. She's like, yeah, I am making first impressions already of everybody who's already talked, and like, this game is savage, and she's just like so genuinely herself. It's hilarious.
I loved it. I loved when she brought that up, because I was of the same mind watching this marooning. I was like, everyone's being a little too coy, which you expect from some of them. Some of them have org experience. They are like trying to game the game. And then you have someone like Margaret, who no experience, has watched some seasons. She comes from us as one of the few people on the season with a connection to the Bad Bitches book club. Shout out to Mackenzie there. But there is one person of this 17 that you both are familiar with. You both got very far in Sahara Dunes with, and that's Michael. What were you guys sort of surprised to see him immediately jumping back into things, being the lone representative of your season, having to play as you guys started airing the episodes for your season?
It was so exciting to see Michael again. I loved watching him play back. Playing with him was a little confusing, obviously, as how chaotic he is, like we said, but watching him back is so fun. And I think, like, not to jump too far, but it's like, it seems like he's starting to play kind of similar to how he started in Sahara Dunes, which I think will bode well for him. But he's so fun to watch. He's hilarious.
Yeah, he's great TV wise, but he's also so good at the game. And I feel like he is starting to play like he did in Sahara Dunes, but because I don't know how many games he's played, but I feel like he's really got his footing. Like now he seems like he's a pro at it. So I feel like he could do really well. I'm rooting for him, obviously, to go all the way.
Yeah, like, so I wasn't part of production for your season, so I didn't know, like, I didn't get to really watch like the tape on Michael. So this was all new to me. But he comes across very disarming for me. Like, just he's very low key, very relaxed, very chill. Can get you a few laughs here and there. He's self-deprecating when he needs to be, and I'm someone who loves self-deprecation. So I'm already a fan of him after these episodes as well. I'm excited to see what he does throughout this season. But he's not the only person who's representative of DCP lore, and some of the players realize that too. And we get this hilarious clip of Nick, the white Nick Cannon, coming in and saying how we got ourselves two DCP legends in Exile pre-merge boots, Connor and Victoria. Calls them the Boston Rob and Parvati type players. Is fearful of them, that they will be able to have people come to them because of their experience. But I couldn't just I know where he was coming from, but I couldn't stop but laugh when I was hearing those comparisons, because I love Connor, I love Victoria, I love them while they're playing Exile Island. Boston Rob and Parvati aren't the names that would come to mind for me and going to compare those players. But hey, I hope they got some like satisfaction watching this back now. Be like, oh, Nick felt that highly of us.
Seriously, what a freaking compliment. I was dying. That was the first note that I wrote down. I like wanted to kind of keep track of all the funny lines that I heard, because there were a lot. I'm sure we'll get to them, but that was obviously like so funny. Like just like the Boston Rob one, okay, whatever. But like Victoria's Parvati was so freaking good, because then it's like across the next, like that episode and the next episode, you're like, dang, Victoria is queen. Like it was just so funny to me, but so different personality wise.
Absolutely. And it's sort of like bearing the lead here, we also have the other twist that Nick also introduces to us afterwards, as well, is that we're not starting with tribes. This is a 17-person marooning. It's one world style. Everyone can talk to each other. That's chaos right there. Like, imagine you guys starting your mini, and instead of being on your two separate tribes, you're like, oh, here's all 13 other people that you must talk to, or else you're going to survive. But like in a mini format, I'd be like, you have 40 minutes to get to know everyone and figure out how to do it. Have fun. Like,
that's literally what I texted Kiley when I watched the first episode, and I was like, this is so overwhelming. But then that's what I'm saying, where like the long game is so different from the mini, because if this were a mini and there were 17 of us, that would be absolute mayhem. Like that would be crazy.
No, who would ever think about doing something like that in a future season, you know?
But no, it's interesting to see how like the game works, where you make your own Zoom calls. I'm still learning how that works, like how you invite people into the group and who's allowed to be on what calls and how you organize those things. But that definitely helps if there's 17 of you to break off.
Absolutely. But it is funny. We get the comparison of Boston Rob Party. We get some great editing work here from McKenna, highlighting them in the videos. Love also the theme music that we have, the new theme music to represent Monte Carlo for this season. Very fun, very like almost like elevator music-esque as we're listening to these people. It's a vibe, and I was digging it. But we have Victoria. She has unfinished business. And I just like the Parvati claim, because Parvati, her biggest strength is her social game. Victoria goes, well, my weakest thing last time was my social game, and I want to improve that this time around and see if that can get me farther. I love that for her. I love self-awareness from players, and we also see it from Connor too, who was like, I was a little too chaotic on my season. Like I was just too like gung-ho. I was like, everything I saw I wanted to do. This time, I already had that experience. I'm coming in. I'm going to be more low-key, more relaxed, let things come to me instead of me being the one approaching everything. So I love seeing returning players using the benefit of being a returning player to actually change things up for themselves.
Yeah, that is really cool. I'm interested to see how that actually goes on, because like we've seen a little bit, but it's like it was kind of like a free-for-all the first episode, and then the second episode we really only got to see from the losing tribe. And so I will be interested to see, like, as we go farther, how they kind of work with their past faults and all the things that did work for them, especially because, like you said, those two specifically, it's like they went pre-merge, so obviously like there's things that they can do different to make it longer in this game. And then like we talked about Michael as well, it's like he went really far, but then at the end, like, we saw him as a threat and we wanted to get him out, and so like there's a lot of things that he can do differently as well.
Absolutely. And then we get our two other returning DCP players in Kyle and Shay. They were from our second mini season of Lalumanu Beach. They were on opposing tribes, on opposing alliances. They didn't really get to talk that much game with each other. Like they talked a little bit in the merge portion of the game, but they were never aligned with each other. So they're both sort of like, we're open to it, but it's not like a end all be all. And there's a good chance a lot of these people didn't see all those seasons. Like I'm pretty sure only a handful have watched all of them, and one of them's Elijah, who, as you saw in like the fantasy, the DCP super fan.
I did not know that. I didn't know he was a DCP super fan.
He has watched everything.
What did he think
knows
about
your games?
Kylie and Eric from Sahara Dunes, as he said. Just kidding.
Yeah, but so that also then leads us to Kylie and Mike. They played a game called Pandemic together in a recent history before the show. We knew that they had like a connection. We didn't know all the intricacies of how close they were, but you see right away they're both like, okay, we're locked in. We'll do the same thing again, work with each other. But they're lying about like their full experience because they don't want people figuring out. That's smart. We'll see if they're able to fully get to utilize this, since we do see in episode 2 they are on opposite tribes. That's on purpose. We'll get into that when we get into episode 2 so that people understand how the tribes are actually formatted. But it'll be very interesting to see how they can go, because I feel like they're two very different styles of players. Kylie's coming off more of like, she wants to be social but low key. Like she's soft. She's not being loud. She's being soft spoken, letting the information come. Whereas Mike's sort of like this chaos energy personified in a person. And he's like, I want to lie. I want to lie to everybody, but I also want to tell the truth to everybody and see how I'm able to actually get it. Because he has reads and they're correct reads, but I wonder if the chaos is going to like consume him.
That's so funny, because I have like the reverse view of the two of them. Because so for Kylie, like, I think she's doing a good job when she's in group settings of being reserved and being quiet. But you can tell that she feels so comfortable with Mike when they talk, because when it's just the two of them, she's like loud. She's like letting her opinion be heard like very, very loudly and clearly to him. She's like, Elijah's a problem. Like, but she doesn't talk that way with anybody else. You can tell that she feels very comfortable with him. Whereas with Mike, at first when he said in his confessional that he just wanted to be diabolical and lie, I'm like, oh man, he's gonna be a villain. But then he proceeded to talk about like his view of how everybody else is viewing the game, what motivates them, and I thought it was just very insightful. I think he's gonna do a really good job. We'll see.
Yeah, and like I know this is jumping ahead, but we also see that he's starting to form a bond with Kyle, and he's saying like accurately saying like, as much as I want Kylie to be my ride or die, I need to make sure I have another option. And I do want to say, I fully believe he initially picked Kyle, because if for some reason Kylie left, Kylie to Kyle is a very small jump.
Yep, such a small jump. I do really like that though. Like, I love when he was talking with Kyle, how he was saying that he also, when he talks to other people, is kind of implementing Kyle in that already. Like, oh, you haven't talked to Kyle yet? Kyle's awesome. You should talk to him. Like, 100%. I really like that subtlety. I think Eric did that a lot in our season with me, which was cool. So I think that could bode really well for them. And they're on the same tribe, as we jump to the second episode. But so that could be really cool. And like you said, who knows what's going to happen with Kylie? She may, I don't think she will go soon, but it's like she could. And then Mike's out. So it's good that he's already forming that bond with Kyle.
Yeah, well, if you have some of those beliefs, stay tuned to the end of the episode when I further elaborate on the fantasy game that is running for this season. But it's all very interesting. And the last, like, adjacent connections we have coming in is the Bad Bitch Book Club of it all, where Margaret and Andrew bond, and it's not said, but essentially a thing that's sort of undertoned here is Margaret's a member of it. Andrew has like an adjacent, like a relative or a sister who's in the club, so they had that bonding moment, as well as McKenna on the other tribe is a member of the club. It's such a big, it's such a big club that you could easily be in it and not know so many people that are in it. And to our knowledge going into this, and still to this day, they all didn't know each other. So like they met each other in here despite having that other outlet, which I always find extremely fascinating, because like we had that last season with Mackenzie and Lilly. Mackenzie, who runs it, Lily's just a member. They didn't really know each other though, so it was like an opportunity for them to really bond over it. And so it'll be interesting to see how that happens moving forward, if they ever end up all on the same tribe together. Is that something that could happen and form into something big? We'll see. But
this book club is like the cornerstone of DCP.
I know it's turning into it.
We talked about it. Are we invited?
Out that like 5 people in Sahara Dunes were all somehow related to this book club. Like, it's crazy. That's so cool.
It is a wonderful talent pool for us, as well as if people like to read. So if you believe you're a bad bitch, I recommend joining it. But next is our next twist, and they're all finding this letter in their equipment packages that they got for the game. There's a note for a high rollers room. If you go, you must play. And we see everyone but Micah and Victoria go. Micah, we find out it's because he was at a concert.
What concert? That is my biggest question of the episode. Micah, comment below. What concert did you go to? I want to know. You never said. We need to know. People are asking. It's
the important information that we need to know as people who analyze the game. What concert was it and how was it?
I mean, that player did how I perceive him as a player. So I need to know.
Well, that's big. But we're in the high rollers room, and it's introduced to us by Michael. And I love Michael getting the chance to be the one who directs us through what the high rollers room is in the beginning, and more importantly in the aftermath.
In the end, yes.
We'll get there for you for that quote, but we'll start with the room itself. When you go in, you are given a roulette wheel. You have to pick a color. If it lands on that color, you gain an advantage to a clue. Or no, you get a clue to an advantage. And the advantage is a 50-50 coin, we find out. If it lands on the opposite color, you will get a disadvantage in the first challenge that is performed in the premiere. And we see, for the most part, everyone is pretty lucky. We get 10 people get the advantage to the clue, 5 get a disadvantage. So Andrew, Connor, Elijah, Kiley, Kyle, Margaret, Michael, Mike, and Parker and Shay all get the clue to the advantage. Jonathan, Julia, McKenna, Nick, and Will get a disadvantage. And the disadvantage is that they don't get to pick the competition they do. They'll be randomly assigned based off what's available after everyone else has picked. So Michael has the clue. He's like, perfect. I have the clue. I have read the clue. Problem. I'm dumb.
My favorite quote ever. Literally, I could not relate to something more. Michael, my spirit animal. It was so funny because he was just like so pumped, but also like, this will do nothing for me.
Yeah, and I was cracking up at that. Also, I have to say, I thought that only Michael had that little clue in his package in the beginning, and I was like, yes! I was so excited. But no, I thought that his line afterward was hilarious. I really feel like he is coming out of his shell even more in this season, which is just so fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of me really wished that was the title of the premiere. It's like, one slight problem, I'm dumb. But he's having fun with it. But we do cue to the person who does find out the clue, and that's Shay. And Shay figures out the clue. In the clue, there's left, a right, and up and a down, and in the clue. And what he finds out is the word that's next to that direction is part of a phrase, and it lines up to chance at second, or chance for second life. he types that into the host, and the host go, congratulations, you have won the advantage of the game, you won a 50-50 coin, which sort of goes with the theme of this season. You know, we get through 2 episodes, we have 3 50-50 coins passed out. It's a gambling game. You gotta have a gambling idol, right?
Yeah, I like it.
It was entertaining, and I love that it was Shay who found it, because like Shay's good at like talking, and being able to explain, have some humor to it.
I was thinking the same thing. He explained it so well, because I was even on the edge of my seat. I was like, did you get it? Did you not get it? Are you just walking us through your thought process? And then he was like, and I got it. And I was like, yeah, woo.
Yeah, everyone would have been so upset if he did all this. It goes, and I didn't get it.
That's what I thought was gonna happen.
So I was like happy for him, because I loved producing Shay during the 2nd season. He'll always be remembered for "Is sex a clue?" That's one of the most iconic lines, I still believe, of DCP history, when he asked me that in confessional.
That's so funny.
But
was it a clue?
No, it was not a clue. It was not a clue that time, still not a clue today. But like we said, I already talked about Kyle and Mike forming their good bond. We also see Nick and Will's duo sort of forming, as well as Julia. We see the econ group of Kyle, Connor, Nick, and Julia, who we also later hear Victoria's a little bitter that she wasn't part of that group, because some of them don't even have or weren't even econ majors, and if they needed to, she could show them her diploma. And I was there during that confessional, and I was just dying. I was in my basement just like listening in, and I was like, thank God I'm muted, because I'm like on the floor laughing from that, because it's just so stone
good. Her delivery,
I lost it.
So funny.
The delivery was perfect. Like, there's one group in particular that I'm salty about. Like, the delivery was just so good.
Yeah, like the fact that they made an alliance based on econ is just like hilarious to me. But then it's like they would be nothing without Victoria's commentary on them. It's like we would be like, oh, the econ alliance, because then it's like they get split up. We'll see if they come back together. But like, we're gonna remember them because Victoria said that. It's like that line is so iconic. So we're gonna be like, oh my gosh, remember the econ alliance for episode 1?
I'm pretty sure that there are people in the group who aren't even econ majors.
Yeah, like Connor's a high school student. Like he
so
can't
funny.
be an econ major guy. It's like, oh, or they have an interest in it, and that like he's into
what does that
one.
mean?
It's just like, oh, we're interested in finance or economics. Like, okay, good for you. Y'all are losers. I'm kidding. But
you're smarter than us.
But what we're seeing here, though, is the start of what ultimately is going to unwind next game. Is he keeps creating these groups based off like one like specific thing that people have in common, and then we'll just create the group. There, we'll have to ask production or the hosts, Ian and Morgan, how many chats were made by Nick, but it's a lot, guys. It's a lot. Other things of note: Elijah has a one-on-one. Victoria wants Victoria to be like his guide, like his person. They're both introverted. We also know of this unnamed 6 that Victoria talks about in the second half of this episode. It's like quote unquote the introvert alliance. People who feel more introverted. So I know those 2 are in it. I know Parker was in it. I know Kyle was in it. I believe McKenna, and maybe Jonathan. Like, I think that was the 6. Don't quote me on it. We don't hear it in the episode.
I think Michael might be part of it. And when Elijah was talking to Victoria, I was like, I love this. Like, I'm rooting for them. I'm a big fan of it. But I know when Kiley was saying Elijah's a problem, she said that Elijah was in a group call with Victoria and Michael. And I was like, if it's Victoria, Elijah, and Michael, like, I am here for it. That group that's like, I'm rooting for them. So
that is a fun group. He does seem to like, it may be that his introvertness may be like rubbing some people the wrong way, because we do see like some people are already like sussing him for these 2 episodes. So we'll see how far he can go. It would be fun to see this pair or this tandem, including Michael, if they all can come back together, see what they could do. It's an interesting alliance, because you don't really hear that as like an alliance, a choice. Like, the introverts coming together. It's always the extroverted ones that all come together because like, oh, we all can hang out. We're all this type of energy. We don't see it from the opposite side. So I'm very intrigued by it. Which then leads us to one more thing before the immunity. Jonathan, sort of like being low key. He's like, I want to be my presence felt, but not pushy. But I'm also enjoying seeing people when they lie because now I can start figuring out their tells. So now in the future, if they lie to me or are lying on camera with me there, I can suss out immediately if they're telling the truth or not. And I thought as someone who has like org experience in Jonathan, that's a very like veteran style of gameplay right there. So it's something that like perked me up a little.
Yeah, I think also with that being something where some of them didn't even know that everyone had that invite at that point, maybe he had talked about it when he said that, but if he didn't, and then he also was able to be like, oh, Kiley said I gotta leave in 3 minutes, like obviously that's where she's going. Like for him to have all of those things in a line and understand that all that's pointing towards that reason, and this is what she looks like when she's lying, like I think that's very smart and can probably like prove to benefit him a lot moving forward.
Yeah, like we don't get a lot from him in these 2 episodes, but it's like we're getting pieces of him here. Like we see how he interacts with like McKenna in the 2nd episode. Very like soft approach, like very like inviting. And it's a very intriguing gameplay, especially in like an early portion of the game that I'm not usually accustomed to seeing from people. Mainly because a lot of these games we haven't had people with a lot of org experience. So he's just someone that I'm gonna continuously like keep an eye on as we watch these episodes. Because even I haven't seen all the footage, all the conversations. It's too much for me to have to go through. So I will just review instead. But that leads us to the immunity challenge, and it's a split into 3 parts. 7 people will get to compete in the endurance challenge, 6 in the dexterity, 4 in the strategy. The people who didn't get a disadvantage will be randomly selected, and then they could pick where they decide to compete. The remaining 5 people who got the disadvantage will just be randomly put into what's left. So we'll go in parts here. So we'll start with the endurance, and 7 people compete there. It's Victoria, Mike, Andrew, Micah, Michael, Shay, and Connor. A lot of M's. I think almost all the M's are in that.
Michael, Micah.
Yeah, Mike, Michael, and Micah all competing in this. But in this one, you have a popsicle stick in your mouth, and you are periodically adding dice to the other end of the popsicle stick. So the first 3 to drop go to tribal. The other 4 are safe. And we see Victoria, Mike, and Andrew drop there. Do you guys think you would pick this challenge of the 3 if you had the choice?
I knew you were gonna ask us that, Alex. I don't know.
What, Kiley? You weren't gonna pick the strategy, the puzzle?
Well, so honestly, now this is gonna be controversial probably because I would have done poorly, but night moves look so freaking fun. I probably would have chosen just for the enjoyment of it. I would not have won, but it seems more fun than the other 2. So that's probably what
I was intimidated by that one. I feel like there's people out there who are like mathematically minded who could just figure out the correct way to solve that, and that's just not me. So yeah. Even though I love puzzles, I probably would have picked the second one.
The dexterity?
The dexterity one. Yeah, I feel like the endurance challenges are really, I didn't know if you know ahead of time what it's going to be, but that can really show who's playing hard and like who really wants to win. So I'd probably do the middle of the round one.
Nice. So Eric, like Eric said, he would have done the dexterity, which is you put a popsicle on the top of your face and then you maneuver it down and into your mouth. First 3 who do that are safe. The other 3 go to tribal, and we see Parker, Kyle, and McKenna go to tribal. They lost this challenge, whereas Kiley, Julia, and Elijah safe from tribal council. So your boy is safe.
Way to go, Elijah.
2/3 of that threesome of the introvert group that you guys like are safe from this tribal, which then leads us to night moves. 4 people compete in that. 1 at a time, you move your piece in a night formation like in chess. Once you have no more moves to maneuver, you are out of the challenge. The last person remaining wins. And as we always see in these style of challenges in Survivor, it comes down to 2 people where both of them end up in a spot where they can no longer move. But unfortunately, one has to Margaret has to drop. Jonathan wins immunity in that challenge, sending Margaret, Nick, and Will to tribal. So the people going to tribal are Victoria, Mike, Andrew, Parker, Kyle, McKenna, Margaret, Nick, and Will. And now it's game time because everyone's still allowed to compete, but we're really focusing on, or the talk before the tribal, but we're really focusing on the people that are supposed to be going to this tribal. And essentially this whole part of the game is where Nick and Will think it's a simple vote. They're gonna create this guys group of all the guys that are vulnerable minus Parker. For reasons today, I still did not know why Parker wasn't included in on it. But the target's McKenna because she was someone who had a disadvantage. So very likely they could put votes on her knowing that she doesn't have an advantage. And in theory, that works. The issue is you start creating groups of everyone to make this plan and make it also seem like it's not your plan. And all the groups have Nick and Will in them. And Andrew decides, you know what? I'm going to spill. And he spills to Margaret because Margaret's not involved in any of these chats as well. Go figure, both the people that are in the Bad Bitches book club aren't getting that information. Wink, wink there. So he first reveals that information to Margaret. Then both of them and Mike spill that information to McKenna, who is she's feeling it at this part of the game. She was a little overwhelmed at first, not sure if she could do it, but knowing suddenly that she was a target really hit that spark plug for her where she got into game mode. We also see her talk with Kyle in a 101 where he reveals that information. And so we hear from McKenna going, so the plan's me, but I talked to everyone else. Now the plan is going to be Nick for his own reasons. He also got the disadvantage. He also can't play anything if we were to put votes on him, and he's going home. So I loved this back and forth edit of hearing the sides. You see Nick and Will that are just so confident with each other that this plan's going to go through, just to see everyone else is turned on them without them knowing.
Yeah, I like that a lot from McKenna too. I feel she's just so genuine. I really love her. And I feel her saying we're going to use his logic against him and it's going to be him. I mean, people compared notes. He got caught and she got the target off of herself right away. I feel it's a testament to her social game and just how likable she is that as soon as her name came up, everybody came to her with all the information. Kyle was telling her all the details. Everybody came straight to her. So I don't know. I think she's in a really good spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And a very wise remark from Andrew, who is a newbie to this. He says we don't know if this is actually going to be our tribe. We don't know what's going to happen next. They could switch things up again, and good on him because that's exactly what happens. But he goes, if we can all get together and have this good big group majority come in and do a vote, now we have experienced the tribal. Now we have something that bonds us. And if for some reason the tribes get switched up in the next round, odds are some portion of us are going to be on the same tribe with each other. So we already have that connection going in. And I thought that was chef's kiss. That's exactly what you want to see from a new player, is understanding how this game could work. And this is why it's so important to be able to execute a blind side, because then it's something that really bonds you all together.
Yeah, I think that's a very underrated thing to think about that early on in the game of putting a vote together with whoever you're putting it together with. Even if you've not worked together or you haven't necessarily connected a lot, individually, it will bond you moving forward. And you can do it again, and you just kind of have that foundation moving forward. So I think that was very smart from him.
Yeah, and so unfortunately, the next scene is in tribal. Instead, we see everyone back together. The 16 remaining players minus Shay, and we find out for personal matters, Shay decided that it was best for him to remove himself from the game. He becomes our first quote unquote boot of the season. I love Shay. I never asked questions about it. People have their lives, so if something happens and they need to put that in precedence over a game, you put precedence over a game. And so I know he's doing better now. And I just have all the respect in the world for him. So I was sad to see him go, though.
Yeah,
Same.
so
So
sad to see
sad.
him go. Yeah,
He was
was
super
excited to see him
entertaining,
go.
even for like the little bit that he was in that first episode. He was great to watch.
Absolutely. He's definitely someone who can make an impression and make an impression fast. And I hope to see him again sometime in the future for DCP. If not DCP, just in life in general, because he seems fantastic. But that leads us into episode 2. I have an advantage where they are officially split into tribes. One world you are no more. Tribes is how we're going to go on moving forward. So we have 2 tribes. The Ruken tribe, which is the red tribe. That's Will, Nick, Andrew, Margaret, Kiley, Connor, Michael, and Parker. And the Serpone tribe, which is the black tribe, is Kyle, Micah, Julia, Victoria, Mike, Elijah, Jonathan, and McKenna. Too many M's. I will always say we somehow get all the people with M names to sign up for these games. It's hilarious. It's a lot of people still, but they're officially on new tribes. And essentially we had like all these scenarios on if X person left, this is how the tribe would be arranged before we even got to day 1. So before any of them met each other, any of them got to have conversations, Morgan and Ian had created this pool of options where if someone goes, this is how we make it. If this person goes, this is how it changes the tribe. So who's to say how some of this stuff would have changed if Shay didn't go and we saw a Nick blindside? We could have seen a whole different game potentially than what we're about to witness. So it's interesting. It's the butterfly effect and something that you'll never know for sure how much of an impact it is. But we move forward. And so we have the Jonathan and McKenna conversation. What I like from here with Jonathan is like he is like subtly like pushing to McKenna like how he wants her in the game, how he sees value with her and with them as a relationship in the game. McKenna gives the information that, oh, like you didn't have to worry. If we even did go to tribal, I know where everything was going to go. It wasn't going to be me. It was going to be Nick. And Jonathan is sort of relieved to hear that. So this is like the only information we get from both of them together. It seems like something interesting for us to look at moving forward as a duo, maybe.
Yeah, I think Jonathan's very strategic, and like we were talking about his confessional earlier, he's good at sussing people out. He's smart to be skeptical, find people's tells and lies. I think it's going to be telling to watch going forward if he lets that be shown when he's actually talking to people in the different Zoom calls. Right. I think I could sense a little bit. I don't know if everything he was saying was fully truthful when he was talking to Kiley, but he was doing a good job McKenna, at making her feel like he wants her there no matter what. And he has her back and he'll make sure that nobody's going to come after her. So it'll be interesting to see going forward.
Yeah, I felt like that conversation was very interesting. Like the way that he was approaching, I agree, it was subtle and it was a different way than I feel like we usually see. But if I were McKenna, I would have felt like the way that he was talking to me was a little bit like for his benefit in a sense. Like he was like, I really want you to stay. I want you to be with me rather than like, oh, you're overwhelmed. How are you doing? And so it just like seemed a little bit interesting. It was very strategic. But also it's like, that should be good for her to know that he wanted her on his side as well. So I think there's a lot of ways that it could go with them as a pair moving forward, but I thought it was a very interesting like intro conversation into the two of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan is just like, at this point in the game when I was producing, I was like, he was sort of an enigma to me. I was like, I didn't know how to read him. Like I was also like putting myself, because I love putting myself in the shoes of the players and be like, how would I be interacting or gauging if this person was talking to me this way or making this move against me, and how would I interact? He is someone who, like, in this early portion of the game, I was just like, I don't know if I would have been able to actually get an accurate read on him. Like, if I was put in a confessional, like, what do you think of Jonathan? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't not like him, but I don't know if I like him. Like, it's sort of like that type of deal. So he's interesting. We're going to see more from that. But let's move to what Victoria mentions as the most awkward group Zoom ever. And we see it in twofold amongst both tribes, because they both decided they were going to do group Zoom calls. And that's when Ian and Morgan drop the advantage clue for everyone to have an opportunity to get an advantage. Each tribe had a 50-50 coin that they could get. And we'll split this into two parts. So we're going to do Ruken first. They're in a group. They see it. We see most of the tribe, but we see Andrew, we see Connor, we see Kiley, we see Parker, we see Michael from that tribe. And ultimately, we see Connor figures out the puzzle, and it ends up coming to a phrase that says, I have an advantage. He plugs it in, and he's like saying in his confession, like, I wasn't sure like how to go about, like, do I just pretend like I didn't get it and let everyone keep trying to find it, or do I just admit it? And he goes in the route of just saying, got it. I have it.
Solved it.
I'm most likely gonna play it, and you just see like everyone immediately when they say, "Oh, he's gonna play," like, what? What?
It was
Why?
They all responded to him because he's like, solved it, and then they're like, "Oh, are you gonna submit it?" He's like, "I already submitted it," and then they're like, you can tell that they're probably like, "Oh my gosh, okay, this guy already submitted the answer, he got it right." But then I thought their reactions were pretty impressive. Like, I think Parker was like, "Oh no, I'm happy for you. Like, good job. That was hard work. Like, you did a great job." I think they did a good job of reacting to it, but I'm sure that the wheels were spinning in their head, like, huh.
Oh yeah, like for sure they had wheels spinning, but I think they were also just like so confused by it because I think in their minds they never did anything to make Connor feel like his instant reaction would have to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna probably just play this at our first tribal just to get rid of it." Like, it was just so that we knew where it was, so I'll just play it and then we'll be good. And everyone's just like, but like, you don't have to play it. Like, is in their minds like, well, if we're in an alliance, like, or a potential alliance, like, you could hold on to it. Like, that could be useful later. Like, why are you using it now? So it was like, as some of them who are like gamers, they were just like perplexed by Connor. And we see the confession from Connor too, where he's like, I want to be seen as a team player. I want to be seen as someone who can like play ball, be a dumb dog, which I've never heard someone call themselves a dumb dog before.
Never heard that phrase.
What does that mean?
I just assume overall he was just trying to say, I want people to underestimate me and just see me as a number. But like, in actuality, he does like that little cool card flip thing. He's like, no, like they don't know what I can do. And so it'll be interesting to see this story unfold of like him wanting to be this like underdog, under the radar player, and if he's actually going to be successful at doing it.
Yeah,
I think it's funny. Oh, go ahead, Kiley.
Okay, sorry. I was just gonna say, I think it was interesting because it was perplexing to me the way that he handled it. But from what we've seen, it didn't put like a target on his back at all. So maybe it is just playing into him being a dumb dog, whatever that means. Like, it was just so weird because I was like, so many things that he did, I didn't understand why he did it, but maybe it will work out for him. Like, maybe it will benefit him in the sense that like these people just want to take him along, and then like when the time comes, he'll cut them or something like that. But I do feel like they're probably like, why did he not just save that? We could have used it down the road. I'll be interested to see what happens.
And he did lead in with like, I just want to find this for the group so we all know where it is. But then he like went ahead and submitted the answer. So I think they're just like a little confused, mixed messages here. But I think the funniest thing was like the juxtaposition of his confessionals, how he wants to be the underdog, or he wants to be like even keeled and not be out there. But then, so he is self-aware in that sense. And he is self-aware in the sense it's like, they're not going to be able to look at me and not think I'm strategic. I mean, like, look at me, essentially. It's going to be a hard road for me. But then in action, he can't really kind of keep that part of him underneath, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they decide to deal with Connor. But we move forward, and now we're at Serpone, which like Victoria calls the most awkward one ever. Everyone, like Elijah's just like publicly talking through the puzzle with everyone, which isn't a good start. And Victoria's just like, yeah, so like I knew I wasn't gonna be the one to find this, so I had Chipotle and played Overcooked on my phone because I just wasn't going to bother anymore. I love that energy from her.
She's so funny.
Oh, her delivery is always like the best as well, because it's like you don't expect it from Victoria.
No,
but
you don't.
It's just like this so dry humor, and but it gets me all the time. I love it. But we also
though, one more thing on Victoria before we move on. Like, I think her delivery and the confessionals are very funny, but I think that because she talks like that with people, it'll show that like she's one of those people that when she talks, people listen. And so I think like people are going to want to hear what she's saying moving forward. And I think that could hopefully like, you know, help her in her tribe currently, but also like hopefully get her post merge. And I think like her being funny to us is going to overlay into like actually playing as well. Like obviously as the audience, we think she's hilarious because she has some good one-liners, but I would imagine there's a lot of that when she's actually conversing with people too. And I think that will benefit her for sure.
I also see her as like the comic relief of the season so far, but I'm trying not to let that overshadow. Like she is still very self-aware in the game. She has a really good idea of where everybody's at and her positioning, and she is still very strategic. So I think in addition to just being hilarious, I think she's doing a really good job.
Yeah, I guess like some people would call her dynamic, wink to the name.
Such a dynamic character.
She's such a dynamic character. But we do get from Elijah in a separate call. He's like, I had to create the separate call with you, Victoria. Like, I found it. Like, I found it. This is ours. It's a 50-50 coin. We'll figure this all out. And I love Victoria's accurate read here of like, it's very good that Elijah trusts me because he did find us and was willing to give me this information when normally people shouldn't. So that's good. The issue is he might be a target already from people. Q cut immediately to Kyle going, okay, so I think I figured this out. It doesn't, they say nothing's here. I think Elijah has it. with like no other sus other than just being generally sus of Elijah. So like that's the issue that Elijah's gonna have to teeter-totter this season is what can he do to counteract this like original like suspicion that people already have of him? And is he going to be the super fan that figures it out and pushes forward, or is he going to be the super fan that crashes and burns in the pre-merge? I know what Eric wants it to be.
Well, I mean, I like him so far for sure. We'll see where it goes. I'm just curious, what do you guys think is the correct move here when this puzzle pops up in front of everyone? Like, how would you guys handle it? If you're gonna go for it, I would think that you should tell yourself, I'm not gonna tell anybody, and I'm gonna be committed to not letting anyone know that I have this, right?
Right.
Or like Victoria, like I'm probably not gonna be able to solve it anyways. I'll make it clear as day that I'm not even trying to, so nobody even has any suspicion of me.
That's what I would have done, but that's just because I wouldn't have ever got it. Like I'm like her, like I knew I would have never solved it. So I think the correct approach is not doing it in front of everyone, or at least like not showing that you are. Because I don't think what Elijah did after getting it was bad at all. Like I think Victoria is great and that builds trust, but it doesn't matter because people are already suspicious of because of the way that he handled it while he was finding it and didn't like share. So it's got to start from the beginning. Like you've got to kind of play it well the whole way through. And then it's like, if you don't, then it doesn't matter how you handle it once you get it. Cause then it's like, the suspicion is everyone's perception anyway.
Right. And it's like talking for myself. I feel like I'm someone who could find it, but maybe not be the fastest person to get to it. So I'd probably be more in like Kyle's spot where I did try, but didn't get it. My goal was always in a game like this is always, if I don't get it, I want to make sure I'm good enough with someone that they tell me that they got it. Because like that, I think the information in this day and age, the information of an advantage and who has it is more powerful than actually having it. And like we're seeing that today in actual Survivor as well. It's like people have advantages, but we see people blow up with their advantages all the time, not use it successfully. And it's because everyone knows, like everyone's able to figure out, oh, this person has this is how you counteract it. So I think there's more of a nuance and more fun in the game of how do I make someone use it incorrectly or use it or not use it and still get sent home rather than, oh, I have this now, I have this extra protection. Because like you see the one of two votes, like you have a Connor who's just like, oh, I'm just gonna immediately play it, whatever. Or you're gonna have someone who's like is holding for it for dear life, like I could use this up to final 5 like Elijah can, because they go to the high rollers room where you could determine for another wheel how long it could last, which was final 11, final 9, final 7, or final 5, or your choice. Elijah gets his choice, and go figure, he puts it to final 5. Connor gets final 11, and at first he's just like, no.
His reaction was funny.
He's like so mad, and then he's like, well, I'm probably already playing it anyway, like the first chance I get, just so I can get rid of it. So you know what? I'm not even mad about it. I love his reaction, especially when like he knows he can have a full reaction because it's just him there.
Yeah.
Love it. So then before immunity, we do get a couple other like game talk of alliances. Micah, who is finally back from his concert, is feeling good with Jonathan, McKenna, and Mike. You can already tell Micah's focus is on challenges. He feels those people in particular have a well-balanced and more diverse challenge, like preparedness, I would say, of like they have someone who could sort of be ready to do anything that he believes will be brought to them. So that's the alliance he wants to see moving forward. Then over on Ruken, the Nick and Will duo are still very strong. And we have this hilarious montage of both of them on several 3-person calls with them and then Andrew, Kiley, and Parker just rehashing the same thing over and over again. And just like, once again, highlighting like, they're doing this with everybody. You're making all these chats, you're making all these Zoom calls with the same information, but to different people. How did you not expect people to compare notes? So it's sort of like this little fun little storyline we get to see in these first 2 episodes is these 2 people who think they know what's going on, but they didn't really know what's going on. Because the key information here is up to this point, Will and Nick never had any suspicion that the plan for the last tribal before Shay removed himself had flipped onto them. So it's sort of fun to see another round where the same result ultimately happens, but the people that were going to be hit by it never saw it coming for 2 tribals.
It's insane to me, but also I could see it because they felt so strong with each other, which is really cool. Like it was good that they had some trust there, but it's such a beautiful execution of a blindside, I think, because it's like they talked to so many people. They were they were so blinded by like the way that they thought they were pulling this over some other people. And then all the other people were just like, haha, we got you.
They were fully sold, yeah.
Yeah, fully sold, which is crazy. But it all does come back to, I think, to trust though, because they each talk about it. I know we're not at tribal yet, but I do think it's because the 2 of them trusted each other a lot, and because they did it together, that blinded them from everyone else. Which trust is a good thing, but also you can't like that early on to like only trust this one person and be like, oh, we got this, we're running this, is very hard.
I do have to say though, with Will, I was impressed because like I know he was fully left out of the vote, and that's not great. But you do see him talking about Nick, and he is very self-aware. He's like, Nick has a better pulse on this game than I do. I don't have a full pulse of the game yet, and Nick does. So I need to be skeptical of that, even though I do trust him. That like he's somebody that I can't fully trust, maybe. And I think that self-awareness was impressive.
And also the fact that Will was not the target, which I know like. Was he available to be the target the first round? I don't remember.
Not really. It was more of a like it was always going to be Nick.
Right.
Like the plan was never teetering off that because everyone knew Nick didn't have the advantage, and there was no one who had the advantage to the clue that was going to claim that they would do something to save Nick. So the plan was going to be very straightforward, get rid of Nick, and then Will's just like a potential option moving forward because he's aligned with it. Was sort of a guilt by association for Will than necessarily anything against Will as a player or a person.
Right. Well, and I think that sets Will up moving forward. Like there's room that he can move. It's not the best place by any means, but it's also not horrible. It shows that he is a loyal person. It shows some good things from him as a player that like someone may pick that up and want to work with him. So I agree, Eric. I think that it wasn't horrible, and he did have some self-awareness, which was good.
Yeah, and we see during the scramble, like he has the right like ideas of like how do you go about like getting a plan done. Like it doesn't work for him, but he already had so much packed against him that the plan was never going to work. Right. But like he's willing to communicate with other people. He's willing to put trust in people. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward if he's someone who will work better now as someone who's on the bottom and working their way back up versus where he felt he was perceived at the top and was then blindsided. But we got that. And we have one last connection, and that's from Parker. He confirms that him, Margaret, and Andrew are a tight 3. He also wants to have a Texas connection alliance of him, Margaret, and Kiley. He understands that the people that he's surrounding himself with could be seen later on as perceived threats, and he's okay with that because those are the type of people that he would want to be playing the game with, and just have to figure out later on, how do I separate from that pack? So almost like a Jeremy Collins-esque strategy he's trying to create there. He also likes Michael and wants Michael and Kiley in on a 5 with him, Margaret, and Andrew. We'll see if that ever comes to fruition. But we get that insight from Parker heading into the immunity, which is a countdown. Both teams have to count while their eyes are closed and their arms behind their back, for the most part. And they had to get a total time as a group of 52 minutes and 13 seconds. Obviously, representations of 52 cards in a deck and 13 cards per suit.
You say obvious as if.
Yeah. I know. I knew I was going to say obviously, and kind of going to be like, oh, wait, what? Sure. Yeah. We all were thinking that. But what I like about the change to this challenge is we then also heard of limits. So everyone had to stand for a minimum of a minute, and no one could last longer than 12 minutes. If either of those things happened, your time did not count for your team, which could be a deal breaker and cost your team the win if your time can no longer count. Because we could see people in the past do this type of challenge where if 2 or 3 people are really good at knowing their time, they would tell everyone like, oh, you all just sit down immediately and we'll deal with like understanding how to do this cadence to get that time as the 3 of us instead of having to worry about 8 people. So I like this as part of the challenge. Obviously, we have Ian reading a book during it. The sequel to whatever the book was that he read during Exile Island. This one was called We Will Rock Our Classmates.
Amazing. I love that.
I texted Kylie yesterday about it. No, go ahead.
I was just cracking up because I was like, if I was doing this challenge, I would be so into the story. Like, I was sitting there watching this, and I still was like, I texted Ian, I was like, this is so incoherent. Is this a real book? Like, none of it was going clear. I was so confused. I would have gotten so focused on that if I was playing. So a great addition.
It is very distracting. And Ian just reading me a bedtime story, I was like, this is hilarious. I texted Kylie, this was my Friday night. I was putting together a piece of IKEA furniture and listening to Ian tell me a bedtime story, and I was just dying. It was so funny.
It was so good.
Yeah, this is a challenge I wouldn't do amazing with, but I will say a big factor I want to say for Serpone winning this, like they get a time of 51 minutes flat, which was averaged out. We had 2 people in production timing everyone for a team or one team. So we had 2 people for one team averaged out the times if they were different. And we had 2 doing the other team. So we had multiple times to compare and make sure we hit them right. So they got a total time of 51 minutes. Ruken had a time of 58 minutes and 29 seconds. So Serpone wins immunity. Elijah, I think, played a key factor in how this was going to go because they didn't know what the time was when they got to talk with each other about and game plan. They only knew about the time when they got there. And Elijah in the breakout room was telling his tribe, like, it's most likely something gambling themed for the time. So like probably like 52 minutes or something. Like this is a lot. Like this is Elijah here. Like he was like figuring out like what would be like a gambling number or something, or like 21 minutes or something. Like they were like figuring out options. So he was like, and he does a band. So like he knows like rhythm and timing of it all because you have to know your steps. You have to know the beats.
That's impressive.
And so he was like, if we do this, like everyone would only need to stand for like, try to count to this X amount of time. So really showing potential threat level there, but it does ultimately get them the win, which is great for everyone on Serpone, which then leads to a Ruken scramble where essentially, to make this a little faster, Nick and Will think the easy plan is to go for Margaret because she was a potential option last round. McKenna's not an option this time. They both have that affiliation with the Bad Bitch Book Club. She hasn't started any conversations with them, but like, you know, it's a 2-way street. They didn't start conversations with her either and create a guys chat. But my favorite part is you have the 6 other people all on call with each other. Kylie's like talking about how she got all the information last round from Mike. and Parker, and she's like, oh yeah, I just got off call with them. They said that Parker and Connor are leading this vote and they're gung-ho on wanting Margaret out, and they're all laughing about it because they're like, oh, look at us, Connor, we're snakes. We're so slimy. Oh, it's like when you know the result is always going to be Nick in this episode and you're watching this and you're just like, it's the art of an old school episode of Survivor where you know the boot, but there's humor in watching it all unfold in front of them without them ever knowing this was going to happen. Oh, beautiful.
So good. I think the biggest part was like seeing the blind side of Will too. Like, I hate it for him, but like that shows how well it was executed, was that like not only did the person going home was he blindsided, it was like his closest ally was also blindsided. So they handled it very well. Like there's a lot of like finesse, I feel like, that goes into that especially in a tribe of 8, like that's a lot of people that have to handle that well. So I think that was very impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Which then leads us into tribal, and it's not much of note. I think that one of the key things I want to just add is like Andrew and Parker both talking about how there was no slow burn to this game that a lot of people were expecting, like, oh, it'll gradually come in and then suddenly hit us. No, it started from day one. They went hard. You could tell these people came in to play the game. And like for Andrew, he's like, oh, it starts stressing me out, but like in a good way, because this is what I would expect us to be feeling like if we were actually out there in the game. So it's sort of cool seeing players and in a long game format also still feel like the pressures that you would feel in the real game and also in a mini, because like minis are so fast paced and like so like hectic and stress inducing, because like you only have like 20 minutes to figure out a name and execute a plan, execute a blindside, move forward to the next round. So it's sort of appreciated. And as two people who played the game, like I feel like you guys can both relate to that.
Definitely.
Definitely. It's so stressful. But also it's crazy because it's like you, for them in this situation, that they wanted to carry on the plan that they had like however many nights before when tribal didn't happen, and then to keep it and then days to pass, like that is so draining, I would imagine, on their mind. Like Andrew was saying, like you go to work all day and then you come home, you want to turn your brain off, but then it's like, no, I got to get back and I got to make sure that I don't spoil this that I've started days ago. And it's like for us in a mini, like we just had to like think on our feet all the time. So it is so different, but it is interesting to watch the differences, but also the similarities in them.
Yeah. And then the only other thing to notice, like before we go into the votes, Will is talking about how he values trust and he would like to believe everyone is trustworthy, at least to his knowledge at the moment. But like, even if plans don't go through, like, I'm not going to count that as them being totally untrustworthy. Like there's still room to maneuver, which like, good thing he thinks that, because I was like, they weren't trustworthy. And he and Nick get blindsided in a 6-2 vote, sending Nick out. First voted out of the game, but second boot overall. We see White Nick Cannon exit our screens. Overall, what are your ending thoughts on the rise and fall of Nick Cannon? Eric, let's start with you.
I'll go first?
Yeah.
Okay. I really enjoyed watching him. I really like him. I guess I don't see the behind the scenes of how many messages and how many groups he made. So I don't think it was that terrible, like watching it back. I'm like, well, he got caught. People compared notes and then he was doomed. But no, I enjoyed watching him. I think he does have a good strategic mind in terms of like how to put a bolt together or how to like separate your three and make sure that nobody realizes. But obviously it didn't work out. But it was still fun to watch him, and I felt so bad when he was voted out because you could tell he was not expecting it. And after 7 days of thinking that you're like running the game and just realizing that you absolutely were on the bottom, it must have been rough.
Yeah, I agree. I really liked watching him too. I think it was a really good story arc for him. Obviously, it probably went way too fast in his mind. Like he definitely wanted to last longer, but I think that it all kind of goes back to, in a sense, like in the beginning when he did say Boston Rob Parvati for Connor and for Victoria. I think it shows like he comes in, he's watched these seasons before, he knows some of these people. And so he's like really amped to play, and then he just plays really hard, really fast. And then he kind of crashes and burns and like doesn't see it. Like he has just these blind spots that he didn't, they're blind spots. Exactly. So I think it was interesting for him to be the first real boot, because it is a really good story. It's not just like, oh, like we all think this one person messed up the challenge, so we're going to vote him out. Like, at least he went on a blind side. I think that's always fun. It probably hurts really bad, but also it's like, wow, they got me out, and they wanted to get me out. Like, there's some good things to come from that. But I think overall Nick Cannon was really fun to watch, but sad to see him go, but also it was a great blind side, so I kind of loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. No better way to go out than a blind side. An Australian Survivor player once said it's the humane way to send someone out is with a blind side. But I wish Nick Cannon all the best. I hope that he had a fun experience while playing the game, and I'm sure him looking through this now and getting to watch this season in full will have ideas on how he could improve if he ever were to play a game again. And I hope he does. Like, I always want to see people succeed in these games, and it would be nice to see if he could learn from his mistakes and figure out what he could do to improve him better, which at this point, hey, survive 2 votes and you're there. Like, then it's house money. Then it's house money, man. That's the optimistic way of looking at it. Monte Carlo. But now that we've watched the people who left, it's now come to the point of the podcast that's very important, and it's the MVPs of the week. So through the 2 episodes, each of us will be picking a MVP, but it won't just be us. The audience now also gets a vote in this. That's right. As you guys watch this, we're going to be posting a question in the Facebook page, on our Instagram, and you can leave comments even below in the comment section here and say who you felt the MVP of this week was. Your points as a majority will go towards a contestant heading into next week's episode, next week's recap, and you will have a factor in who is determined to be the MVP of Monte Carlo. But until we hear from them, we have to hear from us. So let's see, who do I want to go first? I want to go first. Kylie will go first.
I would love to go first. I want to start out by saying Eric and I take this very seriously. So
it's a lot of pressure.
A lot was put in. Yeah, we during our season we would religiously watch our recaps and be like, who's gonna get MVP? So we care about this. So with that being said, I thought through this quite a bit. I think that this was an interesting recap for us to be on, with it being the first episode where it's just kind of like a free-for-all, like I said, and then also no one actually getting voted out with Shay leaving. And then the second one, like, we saw some strategy from the losing tribe. I don't remember their name. The black tribe. But
the black tribe won. Brooklyn lost.
The red tribe.
Good job.
Okay. The red tribe.
Well, the other tribe, whatever. I don't even remember. I don't even remember the tribe. Okay. So with that being said, I wanted to pick an MVP from the blind side because, as I've mentioned, I really enjoyed the blind side of it all. And so I am going to just go straight and say that Andrew gets my MVP point. The reason for that being is when I was watching, I did assume Nick was going to go home, but Andrew had me fooled in a sense. Like, when he was in there and it was like the 3 of them, Nick, Will, and Andrew, I was like, he loves him. He wants to work with them. Like, maybe this isn't going to happen. Like, he literally was like fooling me. And then at the end, obviously he wasn't. And so I think that he had the biggest hand in the blind side carrying over from the beginning. Obviously we talked about with McKenna and everything, like, she did very well at flipping it for episode 1, but I do think that at least out of this tribe, Andrew had the biggest hand at like carrying it over. So I was very impressed with him. And so I think also like he set himself up moving forward very well. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kylie, for your pick. I hope that gave you enough time, Eric, to figure out yours.
Well, I'm gonna comment on her pick first because Andrew was definitely up there on my list as well. He's just very smart, very charismatic, well-spoken, and he did have a big hand in executing that blind side. So props to him. Definitely honorable mention to him. And I don't want to be biased and give it to Michael just because I love Michael. So I'm not going to do that, but honorable mention to him. I think I'm between a couple, but I think I'm just going to go with McKenna. Like I said earlier, I think she's just a really genuine person that people are drawn to. And I just think it's very telling that everybody came to her right away when her name came up and just filled her in with all the information. She wasn't out there like in the forefront trying to dictate the vote or any plans or anything like that. I think she could go really far. And she's especially gotten her footing. Like obviously she was overwhelmed at first, but I have high hopes for her. So I'll go with McKenna.
See, it's very funny because you guys had the two people that I had as my like potential options. I was expecting both of you guys to pick the same people because you guys were always lockstep anyway in your game. But
we have different thoughts, Alex. We're not the same person.
Are you sure about that? But you know what? I like diversifying. So I'm gonna pick someone new now. And I'm going to pick Victoria.
Yeah.
I think it was the low-key episode, like she's safe from her thing, but I feel like a lot of people are liking her. I think she is effectively using her social game and bringing it up more and getting people to trust her. She got Elijah to fully buy into her, give her the event, or not give her the advantage, but give her the information. And she seems to have other avenues as well. She had connections with Parker, connections with Michael, connections with Kyle. We'll see what else she can maneuver. It was a low-key effort, but I like that from her. And I didn't leave these two episodes like I left the first two episodes of Exile thinking she could be someone in danger. I see her as someone who could do damage in this game. So I'm going to pick Victoria, which gives us 3 separate people with 1 vote each, with Victoria, Andrew, and McKenna. All great options. Again, audience, we want to hear from you. We want to know who your MVPs are, and whoever gets the most will get a point added from the audience, and we'll see what you guys pick for the next week as well. But that wraps up this recap of the premiere and episode 2 of DCP's second long game of Survivor Monte Carlo. Some wrapping up plugging here. We are running a fantasy game this time around for Monte Carlo. It is a Survivor pool where before each episode, starting with Monday's episode, so make sure to give us an answer prior to the episode running at 8 p.m. Eastern time on Monday. You will be selecting someone that you believe will not be going home, that tribal. At the end of the episode, you remain in the game if that person is safe. You then can no longer pick that person. And each episode moving forward, you keep picking someone that you think will be safe until there's only one person left, and that person wins. If multiple people get to the end, we'll have a tie. Winner will be randomly selected, and the prize will be a Survivor buff heading your way. So we will pay for it. We will ship it. We'll get it to you. So please join in on the fantasy game. Give us your answers, who you think will be safe next episode, and make sure to continuously pick who prior to each episode, which all episodes will be running on Mondays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Exits with our Castaways will be revealed on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And of course, the recaps every Sunday at 8 p.m. with me and any of my guests, including Kiley and Eric. Again, thank you both for coming. Our socials will be plugged at the end of this video. Please follow us on Instagram, on TikTok. Join the Facebook page where you can put your questions in for exit interviews and also get involved with the fantasy game. Give your picks for MVPs. There's a lot going on, as well as our applications have dropped for our 5th Survivor Mini Trinity Falls. Applications are open through May 6th of 2022. Please, if you want to play the games on May 28th, we will take everybody and anyone who will apply. And we love producing these games. They're very well run. We always try to shake things up, create something new, create something different. It's a fast-paced game. If you ever want to see what you could do in a fast-paced version of Survivor, this is the game for you. But with that, these are my guests, Kiley and Eric. I'm Alex, and we'll see you all next time.